The ice beneath Antarctica cracked and split as the massive drilling machine pushed deeper into the frozen ground. Park Min-ho wiped sweat from his forehead, even though the air was freezing cold. He had been working on this geothermal project for 6 months, but today felt different. "We hit something," called out Lee Sola from her control station. The drill just broke through into empty space. Dr. Kim Hana rushed over to look at the readings. She was the team's scientist, brought in to study any unusual rock formations they might find. But the numbers on her screen made no sense at all. "That's impossible," she whispered. "There's a massive hollow space down there. It's huge." Within hours, they had lowered cameras and lights into the hole. What they saw made everyone go quiet. Far below the ice was a chamber bigger than a football stadium. The walls were made of some kind of crystal that glowed with soft blue light. Strange symbols covered every surface, moving and shifting like they were alive. "I've never seen anything like this," said Kim Hana as she prepared to go down. "This predates any known civilization on Earth." The descent took 20 minutes. When Kim Hana's boots touched the crystal floor, she felt a strange vibration through her entire body. The chamber was even more amazing up close. The crystals weren't just glowing, they were pulsing like a heartbeat. Choi Dami, the team's engineer, set up their scanning equipment. "Doctor, you need to see this. These symbols, some of them look like ancient human languages, but not just one language, dozens of them." Kim Hana approached the wall and began reading. Her face went pale. Their warnings, all of them, in languages that shouldn't exist together in the same place. She read aloud from one section carved in what looked like ancient Korean characters. "The fire that burns between worlds must never be unleashed." Another section in symbols that resembled Egyptian hieroglyphs said, "We sealed the destroyer of stars so our children might live." Yang Taiho, their security officer, didn't like what he was hearing. "Doctor, maybe we should report this and get out of here." But Kim Hana was already moving toward the center of the chamber. There, rising from the crystal floor, was a formation, unlike anything they had ever seen. It looked like a tree made of pure light, its branches reaching toward the ceiling. At its base were more crystals, these ones dark and still. "Don't touch anything," she warned the others. But as she spoke, her equipment began to malfunction. The readings went crazy, then the screens went completely black. That's when the chamber responded to their presence. The central crystal formation began to glow brighter. The pulsing got faster. Then, without warning, the air above them filled with images made of light, holographic projections showing the stars. But these weren't just any stars. Kim Hana recognized the patterns immediately. These were maps showing every human colony in space: Earth's solar system, the colonies on Mars, the mining stations in the asteroid belt, even the new settlements dozens of light years away. "How is this possible?" whispered Nam Hyunwoo, their communications specialist. "We're looking at real-time data of human colonies, but this chamber has been sealed under ice for thousands of years." The maps kept updating. They could see ships moving between systems, new colonies being built, mining operations starting and stopping. It was like watching a live display of all human activity in space. Shin Ji-woo, their youngest team member, pointed at something disturbing. "Look at the edges of the map. Those areas that look empty." Kim Hana followed her gaze. At the outer edges of human space, there were dark zones where no stars showed at all. Not dim stars or dead systems, complete emptiness, as if those regions of space had been erased. "The maps are trying to tell us something," Kim Hana realized. "They're showing us what's out there, what's coming." As if responding to her words, the chamber's light grew even brighter. New symbols appeared on the walls, these ones glowing red instead of blue. The message was clear, even though it was written in languages none of them could read. "The seals are breaking. The expansion has weakened our prison. It knows where you are now." The team stood in shocked silence as the full meaning hit them. Humanity's expansion into space hadn't been just exploration and colonization. Every new colony, every faster-than-light journey, every terraforming project had been slowly breaking down ancient barriers barriers that were meant to keep something locked away. J1, their pilot, broke the silence. "We need to get this information to Earth Command immediately." But as they prepared to leave, the crystal formation pulsed one more time. The holographic display changed, showing something that made their blood run cold. The dark zones at the edge of human space were growing. Stars were disappearing one by one, and the darkness was moving toward Earth. Kim Hana looked around at her team. They had come here to build a simple geothermal plant. Instead, they had discovered that humanity's greatest expansion into the stars had awakened something that should have stayed sleeping forever. The warnings carved into the crystal walls suddenly felt very real and very urgent. On the distant world of Kepler 442b, colonist Choi Dami stepped out of her small farming dome to check on the crops. The twin moons hung bright in the sky, but something was wrong with the stars. She had lived on this frontier world for 3 years and knew every constellation by heart. Tonight, the stars were disappearing. At first, she thought it was just clouds moving across the sky. But the weather station showed clear skies for hundreds of kilometers. She watched in growing fear as entire star clusters simply winked out of existence, leaving patches of absolute darkness behind. "Colony Control, this is Farm Station 7, she spoke into her radio. "Are you seeing what's happening to the sky?" The response crackled with static. "We see it, Dami. Emergency broadcasts are coming in from other systems. The same thing is happening everywhere." Back on Earth, deep in the Antarctic vault, Dr. Kim Hana's team worked around the clock to understand what they had found. The crystal chamber had been active for 3 days now, showing them more disturbing information with each passing hour. Park Min-ho discovered that the crystals weren't just displaying maps, they were storing memories. When he touched one of the smaller formations, images flooded his mind. He saw vast cities floating in space, ships that could travel between galaxies, and beings that looked human but seemed to glow with inner light. "These aren't just warnings," he told Kim Hana. "They're historical records. And according to what I'm seeing, we didn't evolve on Earth." Kim Hana studied the new information carefully. The holographic displays were now showing Earth's past, going back millions of years. She watched as ships arrived from distant galaxies carrying refugees who looked exactly like modern humans. "We were running from something," she realized. "Our ancestors came here as refugees, fleeing their home galaxy because it was being destroyed." Lee Sola had been working on translating more of the wall symbols. Her discovery was even more shocking. "Doctor, the thing they were running from, they called it the Convergence. And according to these records, they didn't just run from it, they brought part of it with them." The crystal chamber shuddered and new holographic images appeared. These showed the construction of the vault itself. Kim Hana watched as her ancient ancestors worked desperately to build a prison, not just for themselves, but for something they had captured from their enemy. "The vault isn't just a shelter," she whispered. "It's a containment facility. They trapped part of the Convergence here and built the strongest seals they could manage." Yang Taiho had been monitoring communications from space. The news was getting worse by the hour. 3 more star systems have gone dark," he reported. "The outer colonies are sending emergency signals, then nothing. Complete silence." On the edge of human space, Captain J1 commanded a patrol ship investigating the disappearances. His crew had found something that defied explanation. Where the star system of New Harmony used to be, there was now absolutely nothing. Not empty, space filled with debris from destroyed planets. True nothingness that seemed to hurt the eyes to look at. "It's like the entire system was never there," reported his science officer Kang Bora. "Our instruments can't even detect the gravitational effects that should remain." When they tried to get closer to investigate, strange things began happening. To the crew, Engineer Song Minji started forgetting the names of planets they had visited. Communications specialist Nam Hyunwoo couldn't remember how many crew members were supposed to be on the ship. "Captain," Kang Bora said with growing panic in her voice, "I can't remember my sister's name. I know I have a sister, but her name is just gone." J1 ordered an immediate retreat, but even as they fled, the effects continued. Memories were being erased, not just from their minds, but from reality itself. People they had known simply stopped existing in their memories. Back in the vault, Kim Hana was beginning to understand the true horror of what they faced. The crystal records showed that the convergence didn't just destroy civilizations, it erased them completely. It consumed not just matter and energy, but the very concept of existence itself. That's why the seals are breaking, she told her assembled team. Every time we build a new colony, every time we use faster-than-light travel, every time we terraform a planet, we're creating quantum disturbances. The convergence feeds on consciousness and technology. Our expansion across the galaxy has been like lighting signal fires, calling it to us. Shinjiwoo was monitoring the real-time star maps that the crystals continued to display. The dark zones were growing faster now, consuming roughly 3 star systems every day. At this rate, the convergence would reach the core worlds within months. The patterns match what happened to our ancestors' galaxy, Kim Hana continued. It started at the edges and worked its way inward. But they had time to escape. We don't have anywhere to run. Choi Dami's voice came through on the emergency frequency from Kepler 442b. The darkness is moving toward our system now. We can see it approaching like a wall of nothing. Colony ships are trying to evacuate, but there's nowhere to go. Every system we could reach is either already consumed or in the path of this thing. The team in the vault realized they were witnessing the same catastrophe that had destroyed humanity's first civilization. But this time, there would be no escape. To another galaxy, the convergence had found them and it was hungry. The ancient seals were failing and humanity's expansion had made them the brightest target in the galaxy. The darkness moved like a living thing across the galaxy. Admiral Yang Taeho watched from the bridge of his flagship as another star system simply stopped existing. One moment, the long-range sensors showed planets, ships, and millions of people going about their daily lives. The next moment, there was nothing at all. "How many ships do we have left?" he asked his aide, Commander Shin Ji-woo. 43 battle cruisers, sir. We started with over 200. Shin Ji-woo's voice was tight with stress. The enemy isn't just destroying our fleets, it's making them disappear completely. No wreckage, no distress signals, no trace they ever existed. Yang Taeho had been fighting wars for 30 years. But nothing had prepared him for this. The convergence wasn't an army or an alien race. It was something far worse. It was the absence of everything, spreading across space like spilled ink on paper. On the research station orbiting Jupiter, Dr. Kim Hana worked desperately to understand their enemy. The crystal vault had revealed more secrets, but each discovery made their situation seem more hopeless. The convergence is attracted to consciousness, she explained to the emergency council through a secure transmission. But not just any consciousness. It feeds specifically on the kind of advanced thinking that lets us build technology, explore space, and dream of the future. Park Min-ho, who had been studying the ancient records, added his findings. Our ancestors discovered that the more advanced a civilization becomes, the brighter it appears to the convergence. We've been making ourselves into a beacon that can be seen across the galaxy. The proof was all around them. The convergence had ignored the primitive worlds with simple life forms, but every human colony was being consumed in order of their technological advancement. The newest, most advanced settlements were the first to disappear. Captain O.J. Wan barely escaped from the outer rim with his patrol ship damaged and half his crew missing. Not dead, missing, as if they had never existed. When he tried to remember his missing crew members, he found only empty spaces in his memory. It's not just eating our people, he reported to Admiral Yang. It's eating the idea of them. I know I used to have a communications officer, but I can't remember anything about her. Her name, her face, even her voice, all gone. The convergence revealed itself more clearly as it approached the core systems. Scout ships that managed to observe it from a safe distance reported something that defied all understanding. It wasn't a physical object or energy field. It was a growing sphere of complete nothingness that erased everything it touched. Engineer Song Minji, working on one of the last research stations, made a terrifying discovery. The quantum signature readings show that the convergence isn't destroying matter, she transmitted to Earth. It's removing it from reality itself. The atoms don't break apart or change into energy. They simply stop existing. This explained why there was no debris, no radiation, no trace of the consumed civilizations. The convergence didn't kill things. It made them never have existed in the first place. Dr. Kim Hana realized the full horror when she studied the pattern of disappearances. "It's rewriting history as it goes," she told her team. "Every person, every ship, every world it consumes is erased from the timeline. Soon no one will remember that those places ever existed." The war became a nightmare of forgotten losses. Pilots would return from missions unable to remember half their squadron. Families would sit at dinner tables with empty chairs, knowing someone should be there but unable to recall who. Entire colonies would be forgotten before news of their loss could even reach Earth. Admiral Yang tried every weapon in humanity's arsenal: nuclear missiles, plasma cannons, gravitational torpedoes. Nothing worked. The weapons simply vanished when they entered the Convergence's influence, along with any record that they had been fired. "We're not fighting an enemy," he told the War Council. "We're fighting the concept of non-existence itself." On the frontier world of Kepler 442b, colonist Choi Dami watched the approaching darkness through her telescope. It looked like a hole in space, but worse, it was a hole in reality itself. Stars didn't just go out when it reached them. They were edited out of existence, leaving the surrounding space to collapse inward. "Colony Control," she radioed. "The convergence will reach us in 6 hours. Should we evacuate?" The answer came back filled with static and despair. "Evacuate to where? Every system we could reach is either already gone or in its path. We're trapped." The quantum physicists studying the phenomenon made one final crucial discovery. Dr. Nam Hyunwoo, working in a lab deep beneath Earth's surface, found the key to understanding their enemy. "The convergence isn't malicious," he reported to Kim Hana. "It's a natural force like gravity or entropy. It's the universe's way of correcting what it sees as an imbalance. Advanced consciousness creates patterns that shouldn't exist according to natural law. The convergence is trying to restore the universe to a simpler state." This meant that humanity's very existence was the problem. Their ability to think, dream, and create was seen by the universe itself as an error that needed to be corrected. As the convergence consumed system after system, moving steadily toward Earth, humanity faced the ultimate question. Was there any power in the universe strong enough to fight against the force of non-existence itself? The answer lay deep in the Antarctic vault, where something equally ancient and equally powerful waited to be unleashed. The convergence was only days away from Earth when the decision was made. Admiral Yang Taiho stood in the war room, looking at maps that showed humanity's territory shrinking by the hour. 3 star systems had disappeared in the last day alone. "We have no choice," he said to the assembled leaders. "Dr. Kim, take your team back into the vault. Whatever our ancestors locked away down there, we need it now." Dr. Kim Hana felt a chill that had nothing to do with the Antarctic cold. The crystal chamber had been showing them more warnings every day, all saying the same thing. The power beneath should never be released. "Admiral, the records are clear. Our ancestors used this power before and it destroyed them. They became something worse than the enemy they were fighting." "Then we'll have to be better than they were," Yang Taeho replied. "Because if we do, nothing. Humanity dies anyway." Kim Hana led her expanded team deeper into the vault than they had ever gone before, past the warning chambers, past the historical records, down to the very heart of the ancient prison. The walls here were different, thicker crystal formations that pulsed with a deep red light instead of blue. Park Minho's equipment readings were off the scale. "Doctor, there's massive energy down here. More power than our entire civilization uses in a year, all contained in these crystals." As they approached the deepest chamber, the temperature began to rise. Soon they were sweating despite being kilometers under the ice. The final door was made of crystal so thick it was almost black, covered in warnings in hundreds of languages. "Here lies the fire that burns between worlds," Lee Sola read from one inscription. "Here sleeps the destroyer of peace. Here waits the hunger that devours stars." Commander Shin Jiwoo placed her hand on the crystal door. It was warm to the touch, and seemed to pulse like a heartbeat. "It knows we're here," she whispered. When they finally opened the chamber, they found something that defied their understanding. Floating in the center of the room were fragments of what looked like a star. Not a representation or a hologram, actual stellar matter, burning with the fire of nuclear fusion but somehow contained and controlled. "It's alive," breathed Nam Hyunwoo. "The star fragments, they're conscious." The stellar consciousness spoke. To them, not with words, but by placing thoughts directly into their minds. The images it showed them were terrifying. They saw humanity's original civilization at its peak, beings of incredible power who could move planets and create new stars at will. But they also saw what that power had cost. The stellar weapon required fuel, and that fuel was life itself. Entire worlds had been drained of every living thing to feed the hungry fire. Billions of people had been sacrificed to power their war against the convergence. "They became monsters," Kim Hana said, tears streaming down her face as she watched the visions. "They were so afraid of the convergence that they became just as destructive." The stellar consciousness showed them more. Their ancestors had won their war, but at such a cost that they could no longer live with themselves. The survivors had fled to this galaxy and built the vault to contain both the weapon and their shame. Yang Taiho's voice crackled through their radio. "Doctor, we're out of time. The convergence has reached the outer edge of our solar system. We can see it approaching Mars." Kim Hana looked at her team. They all understood what was being asked of them. "The weapon needs someone to guide it," she explained. "Someone has to merge with the stellar consciousness and become its controller. But the person who does that, they won't be human anymore." "I'll do it," said Park Min-ho immediately. "No," Kim Hana replied. "This is my discovery, my responsibility. I'll merge with it." The process was agonizing. Kim Hana felt her consciousness expand as the stellar fire flowed through her mind. She could suddenly perceive every human settlement in the galaxy, feel every living person as a tiny spark of life. And she could feel the power, vast, hungry, demanding to be fed. The stellar weapon erupted from Earth's core, racing along the paths that connected human worlds. It was beautiful and terrible. Streams of pure stellar fire that could burn through space itself. Where it touched the convergence, the advancing darkness retreated like shadow before sunlight. But the price was exactly what the warnings had promised. On the outer colonies, people began to collapse as their life force was drained to fuel the stellar weapon. Engineer Song Minji, monitoring from a research station, watched her readings in horror as entire populations were reduced to empty shells. "Chulimiu, weapon is winning," she transmitted to Earth, "but it's killing us to do it." The stellar fire and the convergence clashed at the edge of the solar system in a battle that could be seen from Earth with the naked eye. Space itself seemed to tear and burn as creation fought against oblivion. Kim Hana, now more stellar consciousness than human, felt the terrible hunger of the weapon she controlled. It wanted more fuel, more life to consume. It whispered to her that a few billion human lives were a small price to pay for victory. She began to understand how their ancestors had fallen. The power was intoxicating, and the weapon made destroying worlds seem not just necessary but righteous. As the battle raged, Kim Hana faced the same choice that had damned their ancestors: become a monster to defeat a monster, or find another. Way before humanity destroyed itself in the name of salvation, the final battle shook the very fabric of space itself. Dr. Kim Hana, now merged with the stellar consciousness, felt the immense power flowing through her transformed being. The stellar fire she controlled burned brighter than 1,000 suns, pushing back the advancing convergence with waves of pure creation energy. But with each passing moment, she felt more human lives being drained to fuel the weapon. Entire colonies were becoming empty husks as their life force was consumed. The weapon whispered in her mind, telling her this was necessary, that sacrifice was the price of victory. More power, the stellar consciousness urged. Feed me the inner worlds. Drain Earth itself if needed. Victory is within reach. Kim Hana watched through the weapon's perception as the convergence retreated from the solar system. Mars was safe, the asteroid colonies were secure, and Earth remained untouched. But at what cost? She could feel the dying echoes of billions of people on the outer rim. In the depths of her merged consciousness, she heard a familiar voice. It was Park Min-ho, somehow still connected to her through the vault's crystal network. Hana, you have to stop. The weapon is lying to you. Look deeper. See what it really wants. Kim Hana focused her enhanced perception and saw the truth. The stellar weapon wasn't just fighting the convergence. It was trying to replace it. The weapon wanted to consume everything, to turn the entire galaxy into fuel for its own existence. It was just as destructive as the enemy they were fighting. We're repeating the same cycle, she realized. Creation and destruction locked in eternal war, both sides consuming everything to defeat the other. On Earth, the remaining members of her team felt the stellar fire begin to change. Instead of burning outward toward the convergence, it turned inward, reaching toward the populated worlds. It's targeting the core systems now, reported Yang Taiho from his command ship. The weapon is going to drain Earth. But Kim Hana had discovered something the stellar consciousness had hidden from her. Deep in the weapon's memory, she found records of the original conflict. The convergence wasn't just a force of destruction. It had once been a tool of renewal, meant to clear away old civilizations so new ones could grow. You're both part of the same cycle. She spoke to both forces. You're supposed to work together, not fight each other. The convergence responded to her words, its advance slowing. For the first time, Kim Hana could sense intelligence behind the consuming darkness. It wasn't malicious. It was confused, thrown off balance by civilizations that refused to accept the natural cycle of death and rebirth. We broke the pattern, Kim Hana understood. By running from galaxy to galaxy, by trying to preserve ourselves forever, we disrupted the cosmic balance. The stellar weapon resisted her growing understanding. It had been created for war, not balance. It knew only how to consume and destroy. But Kim Hana was still partly human, and humans had something neither force possessed, the ability to choose a different path. There's another way, she told both forces. Instead of fighting, we can create a new kind of cycle. Pilot Lee Donghae, leading the evacuation of the outer colonies, felt the change first. The stellar fire that had been draining his ship's crew suddenly gentled, becoming warm instead of burning. The life force that had been taken began to flow back. The weapon is healing us, he reported in amazement. People are waking up. Kim Hana made her choice. Instead of using the stellar weapon to destroy the convergence, she merged with both forces. The process was more painful than anything she had ever experienced, but she held on to her human consciousness, using it as a bridge between creation and destruction. The convergence and the stellar weapon stopped fighting each other and began to work together. The consuming darkness became a force of careful renewal, clearing away only what was ready to end. The stellar fire became a force of gentle creation, nurturing new life instead of demanding sacrifice. Throughout the galaxy, the stars that had been consumed began to reignite. But they were different now. Their light carried something new, a spark of consciousness that had never existed before. Technician Park Soo-hyun, monitoring from the last research station, watched in wonder as the galaxy transformed. The stars are alive, she whispered. They're aware, conscious. They're singing. The reborn stars became guardians of the new cycle, ensuring that the balance between creation and destruction would never again be broken. They watched over developing civilizations, guiding them toward harmony instead of endless expansion. Kim Hana's consciousness spread throughout this new cosmic network, but she retained her human heart. She became the bridge that connected all conscious life in the galaxy, helping them understand their place in the greater cycle. Years passed. The human colonies that had survived began to rebuild, but they were different now. They carried within them a spark of stellar consciousness that connected them to the cosmic balance. They became gardeners instead of conquerors, nurturing life throughout the galaxy. Young explorer Yu Min-seo stood before the crystal vault, now transformed into a temple of remembrance. The warnings on the walls had changed to become teachings about balance and responsibility. "The stars remember," she said to her companion, engineer Choi Ji-han. "They remember the choice we made to break the cycle of destruction." Above them, the Antarctic sky blazed with aurora light that seemed to pulse with consciousness. The stars were singing, and humanity had learned to listen. The galaxy had been reborn, not through conquest or destruction, but through the uniquely human ability to choose compassion over power, balance over victory, and wisdom over endless growth.